Alright, there are 16 statues in the village. They're all with a small quest. So, start location. Alright, so when I get the quest, I'll just pull up a map that just shows all the locations. God!
Look! It's Kyle! Hey, everybody! Kyle's back! It's good to see you again, Kyle. But, you haven't changed a bit.
Also, try to cross the bridge. Oh, hey, Kime, you're Kime, right? My grandfather told me all about you. He gave this to me as a keepsake. It's really valuable, but it's what you use to protect our village, right? So here, Kime, I want you to return it. Magic-powered locator. No, I've hidden a treasure somewhere inside the village. See if you can find it. Here's a hint. It's hidden somewhere way up high. Yours if you can find it. Using the magic-powered locator, you'll be able to look for treasures hidden all over the world. But to find treasures, you must obtain information on the whereabouts of those treasures. Once you get information on a treasure, it will appear on the treasure screen within the item menu. When you have your menu information, there will be a glowing point in the menu when you enter an area in which the treasure is hidden. The treasure is hidden at the glowing point. Search for it in a nearby area and put the magic locator. Okay. Oh. Wait, where's the rest of my party? Alright, for the darkness across the bridge and broke the pot. Oh, never mind. I've been in my fair share of battles, but one day, just as I was swinging my sword at someone, I thought, man, I wish I could have been a baker. I have no idea how a thought like that came to me. But after that battle, I quit the army. And maybe I've been baking bread ever since. Oh. Just... Here we go again. Excuse me. Ah, who's ready to read some stuff? The hero was home from the war. He had performed gallantly on the battlefield, advanced to the rank of general, and made a triumphant entry into the village of his birth. The villagers welcomed him with a festive celebration. The grown-ups were treated to drinks beginning in the afternoon, and the children received sweet confections. The cattle and sheep in the pastures that supported the villagers' livelihood, whether because they were excited by the unusual commotion or were welcoming the hero in their own way. Especially shrill cries reverberating into the blue summer sky. General, you are the pride of our village. Obviously full of pride himself, the head of the village thrust out his chest as he delivered his congratulatory address in the welcoming ceremony. To think that the foremost hero in the army came from this tiny village is so incredibly exhilarating and gratifying. I am sure our ancestors are overjoyed as well. The throng crammed into the village square burst forth with cheers and applause. According to the official figures released by the army the other day, General, you brought down at least 2,000 enemy soldiers with your own hands. A thunderous roar shook the square. That's a lot. Come to think of it, the population of this village is less than 1,000. Let's be certain you managed to bury more than 2 of these villages were on your own. Well, that's not something to brag about, let me tell you. How fortunate for us that you were not one of the enemy. If by any chance there had been a warrior of your caliber on their side, they'd all be resting in a hilltop graveyard by now. A few of the women frowned momentarily at this remark, but the man full of liquor responded with an explosive laugh. Sitting stage center, the general lightly stroked his dignified beard. No one present knew that this was his habit whenever he was perplexed. When he left his village to join the army, he was just an ordinary soldier, a long way from growing a beard. General, you are truly the savior of our army and indeed of our entire nation. I understand you will be leaving for another battle tomorrow, but we all hope that you will thoroughly enjoy yourself in this rare visit to your birthplace. The village chief ended his greeting, drew to the wings, whereupon the village #1 entertainer bounded onto the stage in the most comical way you can imagine. Dear General, he cried, running over to where the great man was seated and going down on his ears. Oh, hear my plea. The general looked at him uncertainty. Is there any possibility that you would lend me the sword at your side, if only for a moment? Perplexed, though he was by all this, the general, impelled by the audience's applause and cheers, handed the man his tasseled and jewel-encrusted sword. The man bowed deeply as the sword entered his outstretched hands, and again he cried, My gratitude knows no bounds. Pretending to stagger under the weight of the sword, he came to the front edge of the stage and held the weapon afloat. And now, ladies and gentlemen, I will reenact the event that raised our dear general's fame heights in a single bound, when he hacked 18 of the enemy into tiny little pits. Little teeny tiny bits. What? The audience cheered wildly, and the man with exaggerated movements and commentary swung the sword in a giant arch. The audience knew exactly what he was doing. The general had not only made a name for himself for his strategic prowess, but was also widely acclaimed as a warrior on the battlefield. He relied solely on his weapons, but in the end, leveled his opponents with his sheer physical strength. This too was a matter of the utmost pride for the villagers. Here we go. 1 man down, 2 men down. Flip the sword back. 3 on 4 slash diagonally right through the shoulder. 5th man's head goes flying. Then 3 at once. 16, 17, and 18 men. What a bother. I'll just skewer you like this. The man thrust the sword through 3 imaginary opponents, and the crowd went wild. The general too broke into a smile and applauded. When he was through clapping, he stroked his beard again. I'm sure you can understand how I felt at the time. Sitting up there on that stage, the old general says to Kime, before taking a sip of water from his leather pouch. His magnificent beard is completely white. So distant are the past events he is recounting. Oh boy. Kime nods in silence, and the general continues as if mulling over every word. The more you know about war, the more you feel that way. I'm sure the villagers meant well. They just wanted to pay homage to their hometown hero. No, of course. They weren't being the least bit malicious. My village has the nicest people in the world, which is exactly why I found the whole thing so painful. I couldn't stand it after a while. Hacking 18 men to bits. The deeds of a hero are related in numbers. Surely the man who playfully swung the general's sword on stage that day could never have imagined the ones who lost their lives in the battlefield. The agonized expressions on their faces, the curse in their eyes as they stared into nothingness. But that's alright too. People who live peaceful lives don't know about such things. That's what people like us are for. To keep their lives far away from the battlefields. Don't you agree? Like shots and our killing of enemies, the people we're supposed to protect don't have to know anything about the bloodiness of war. Unless you believe that. What's the point of people killing each other? Uh, each other. Time says nothing in reply. Without either affirming or negating the old general's words, he stares vaguely at the general's troops. What do you say your name is, Kime? I suppose you've killed more enemy soldiers than you could begin to count. There's no way I could count them all. I thought so. You have a flawless build, the kind that can only be tempered on the battlefield. Only a man who has survived one battle after another can carry himself the way you do with complete naturalness. How does a man like you find himself driving a horse cart over a mountain pass? Time is ready to leave without answering if the old man asks him such a question. But the general inquires no further into Kai's background. Instead, there is a sense of relief in the smile he bestows on the sight of Kai rescuing his horses at the path. I was 16 the first time I went into battle. After that, I just kept running from one fight to another until I made it all the way to General. At first, I remember the faces of the men I crossed swords with been killed. Even if you don't try to remember them, they get carved into your memory. I had terrible nightmares. Try as I might, I could never seem to wash out the stench of the blood that splashed on my face and hands. That was a hallucination, of course, but it got so bad once I spent a whole night in a river trying to wash myself off. The general paused a moment to think about his story and then went on. But after a while, you get used to it. You get used to fighting and killing over and over again. Your body and your mind and your heart. You get used to it. You get used to it. That's how people are. So I stopped having nightmares. I killed all the enemy soldiers I could lay my hands on, and I forgot every one of their faces. It's the same for you now too, Kyle. Isn't it? Maybe so. It's like a curse. If you don't get used to it, your heart breaks. On the other hand, if you do get used to it, your heart probably ends up breaking someplace deeper down. The general casts a fawing glance towards his rusty troops, then slowly shifting his gaze far down to the foot of the mountain, he says, "So that's what it was like for me back then, when I returned to my birthplace in triumph." For the final event in the welcoming ceremonies, several children mounted the stage, and now in honor of our hero, the children will present to the general a floral wreath marvelous, more marvelous than the greatest medal there ever was. The audience went wild again when the children put the wreath on his neck, favored them with a warm smile, the first honest smile from the heart that he had managed since climbing onto the stage. And finally, as a special treat for the general, who had been galloping from one battlefield to the next, far from his native place, the children chosen representative, their own original composition spelling out the joys of the peaceful life of the village, and with a look of grim intensity, a small boy, old enough to go to school, unfolded his composition and gripping it in two hands began to read out loud from it, straining to make himself heard. First, I'm going to write about one of the nicest things that happened to me. At my house, we have a pasture with lots of cows and sheep. One cow had a baby 2 days ago. I helped my dad by stroking the cow's back with a handful of straw while she was having the baby. That makes the cow warm up so it's easier for her to give birth. The baby was born just before the sun came up. It was a tiny baby, where stand on its own legs. A baby. Wow. I'm gonna take care of this baby until it grows big. Dear little calf, hurry up and grow up, okay? The general had tears in his eyes. Sorry, I keep watching Mega Man and Team Warriors. Capcom is showing all the English episodes on their Capcom USA Twitch channel, which is like, yay. Now I'm gonna write about one of the saddest things that happened to me. That was when my grandma got sick and died. She was such a nice grandma. I know her sickness made her feel bad, but she was always smiling when I was around. She let me hold her hand when she died. I watched her face the whole time because I knew I wouldn't be able to see her anymore. And I wanted to remember her even after I grow up. She just kept smiling and smiling for me right to the very end. That's why she is always smiling when I think of her. Are you looking down on me from the sky, Grandma? I'll never forget you as long as I live. Tears were streaming down the general's face. When the ceremony ended, the general left his village and headed for the town where army headquarters were located. There, he wrote a long letter to the king. He gave his sword to his most trusted lieutenant. The general had decided to retire. This was a big surprise to me, as it was to anyone. When I heard that little boy's essay, it occurred to me. What makes us really human is to celebrate each life that comes into the world and mourn each life that is lost. I didn't need medals anymore. I didn't need the honor of being allowed into the presence of His Majesty anymore. I wanted to be a real human being again. As a result, overnight, I went from being the village hero to being reviled as a traitor? I returns to face Kaim and asked, so are you gonna mock me as a coward who ran away from the battlefield? Or blame me for being a deserter who betrayed his own patriotism? Kaim turns a gentle smile on the old man. Neither. As a soldier, you made the wrong decision, but as a human being, you made the right one. His white beard says, my habit has changed too. Nowadays, I find myself stroking my beard when I'm embarrassed. Two men look at each other and smile. Okay, back to work, says the general, standing with a grunt. He calls out to his troops. All right, men, it's all downhill from here. Let's give it one last push and get back to the village before sunset. The troops under the general's command consist of 30 sheep, not one of whom is likely to take a person's life. He's a shepherd. Tell me, Kaim, are you planning to go back into battle at some point? I don't really know. I'm content with herding sheep for now. The general says. I don't have the least regret for the decision I made that day. It would make me happy to think this could be a kind of lesson for you. With this parting remark, the general turns away from Kaim and begins walking amble along after him in newly reformed ranks. Standing at attention, the general raises his right arm and waves his troops on. Forward, march! The command he had once delivered to tens of thousands of men in the battlefield now echoes pleasantly among the mountains of his native village. Treasure hunt information deep in the memory. The hint suggests heading for the waterfall. Jump over the wooden planks. Okay. Nope, 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 nope. Jump. Jump. Oh, here it is. Oh. Medusa's head. Climb the ladder. Okay, my brain is just like, did I pick this up? Like I said, my attention is kind of divided right now. No, the north. Why don't you stay here tonight? Okay. Here? What? Nah. Open the drawer. Climb the upper floor. Now, head east from Jensen's position. Ah. The truth is, I was to be drafted into the Golden goats and army, but I slipped off my roof while I was fixing it, and they dismissed me as ineligible for battle. But I'm glad you're not going. You're not going anymore. I'd be all by myself without you. Guess what? That's right. It's another one. We're at 17 of 31 dreams. It might be actually more than that. There is no way to keep the village from becoming a battlefield. The enemy forces have crossed the northern pass and made their camp close by. The home forces are here too, sending one unit after another into the village to resist the enemy's attack. The place is a powder keg. Ringed by mountains where two highways intersect, the village is a crucial focal point for transport. It cannot be allowed to fall into enemies' hands while its capture is essential to any hopes the enemy may or victory in the war. Long years of fighting have come down to this one major battle. It is a battle that must be waged. The logic is clear, simple and inevitable, and it will transform this critical village into a battlefield at any moment. And the army has ordered the villagers to evacuate. Non-combatants can only get in the way. The enemy wants to settle this before the weather turns cold. So what does that mean? Another month? 2 weeks? Get your stuff packed? Got your stuff packed? No sense getting caught in the middle and killed. Talk about dying for nothing. Better forget about taking any pots and pans with you. Pack as light as you can and get away as far as you can. Think of all the generations our ancestors guarded our houses and lands. I hate to think it's going to turn into a wasteland when the fighting starts. There's nothing we can do about it. It's just plain bad luck, that's all. We just have to hang in there until the war is over and come back when we find out who won. The main thing is to get out now, right? That's all we can do. We've got to stay alive. Better not hope for anything more than that. Why the hell does this have to happen to us? The villagers leave a few at a time, beginning with the front ones to find temporary shelter. By the time the forest is lightly tinged with red, the village is practically deserted. The only ones left are old folks who live alone and have no one and no place to run to. The army has built a crude refugee camp for any evacuees able to cross several mountains to reach it. The aged poor stagger in with little more than the clothes on their back. The only one left in the village is Grandma Koto. As a mercenary, Kine first met old Kota shortly after he joined the unit protecting the village. He was on an inspection round at the time when he spotted an old woman working in the fields. She turned out to be Grandma Kota. A soldier with him yelled at her, "Hey, old lady, enough of that. And, you better get out of here now if you want to stay alive. The fight's going to start in 2 or 3 days. How many times do I have to tell you to go to the damn refugee camp?" But old Coulter stayed hunched over, digging in the dirt. Obviously, she was not harvesting anything. If this had been a time when the grain had ripened and she was hurrying to harvest her crops, it might have made sense, but she's just turning the soil as if she had forgotten that a battle was about to start here at any moment. Is that old bag deaf or just senile? The captain looked over to Kime. "Hey, new guy, do something about this one. Drag her to the refugee camp if you have to tie a rope around her neck. We can't have her wandering around down here. She's just going to get in the way when the fighting starts." Arrogant. The more cowardly a commanding officer is, the more arrogant and overbearing his style becomes, and the less he is able to conceal his nervousness when the battle is nearing. Strolled silently towards the old woman in the field. "Well, go on ahead," the captain called out behind him, but he did not turn around. Only a few days would be needed to decide the outcome of the battle for the village, which was a reflection of how violent it promised to be. For this reason, work in the fields now was pointless. Even the most carefully cultivated patch of ground crushed under the soldier's boot. A harvest next year was out of the question, nor was it even clear how many years it would take to restore the village to its former tranquility. When Kime approached her in the field, the old woman kept working and said, "Don't try to stop me." She looked and sounded much tougher than she seemed to in the distance. "Don't try to stop me." She looked and sounded much tougher than she seemed for the distance. She might have been one of those stubborn, cranky old folks that people kept from when the village was at peace. "You're not going to evacuate? What the hell for? They built a camp where you can go to." Old Coda gave a snort and said to Kime, You're a new one. I've never seen you before, yes. So you don't even know what the camp's like. You soldiers have nothing to worry about." "What do you mean?" Old Coda said nothing but pointed towards the steep mountain standing like a painted screen on the west side of the village. "Hmm?" I asked. "Is that where the village is?" "Hell no. You have to cross that mountain and another one to get to it. Nobody my age can walk that far. What's the point of building a camp in a place like that? How many old folks do you think are really going to make it over there? You might as well leave us out in the hills to die like in the old days." Jeez. I was at a loss for words. Continuing our digging, grumbled, "That's how the government does everything." He was clearly angry, but perhaps less angry than sad. You're on an inspection tour, right? Well, don't let me stop you. No, you see, you're not going to get me to go to any damn refugee camp. There is to it. I'm not going anywhere. This is the village I was born in, and I lived here all my life. You feel, but this place is going to turn into a battlefield. I know that. To them, so what? I lost for words again. When she saw that, she smiled and said, "You're a sweet young man, kind of unusual in a soldier." And I softened first time. Once she stopped being so prickly, the smile she produced was actually rather endearing. When this place turns into a battlefield, people will die. Lots of them. I know that much, don't worry. But I have work to do, soldier boy. Telling me to leave my work and run away is like telling me to die. So if I'm gonna die anyway, it won't be long now. I want you to let me do what I want to do. You shouldn't have a problem with that. Well, Kime felt silent. Not because he was at a loss for words yet again, but because he believed she was right. If I'm going to die anyway, he had said, knowing that he would never be able to speak such words. He had no choice but to bow silently to her will. Alright, then run along there, Sonny. I've got work to do. What are you doing now? Speak for yourself. Sorry, but I don't know much about farm work. Like all the other soldiers, Okud said with a smile. Old Kota said with a smile, the only thing you people ever think about is killing enemies. You don't know anything about nurturing life. She said, she let a hint of sorrow show again. Perhaps somewhat taken for a time, however, she favored him with an explanation. I'm planting seeds, he said. Grains of wheat. You sow them in the fall. They mature over winter, shoot up under the spring sun, and turn the fields golden in summer. I always do my planting when the northern mountain peaks turn white every year. And this year is not going to be any different. Would the seeds mature in the trampled fields? Kime had no doubt. Had his doubts. Grandma Kota, however, displayed not the least anxiety or resignation as she scattered seeds. Resignation. As she scattered seeds in the newly turned soil. Her hands performed the age-old ritual with ease and naturalness, as if to impress upon Kime the fact that what she was doing this year was nothing more nor less than what she had done every year before. As a result, Kime's next words emerged with a smoothness that he found himself writing. What if the seeds don't grow? Then I'll just do it again next year. And that year's bad, I'll do it again the year after that. You have to plant you have to plant the seeds. That's how I've lived my life. Plant, nothing will grow. See what I mean? I think so. Whether there's a fight or not, it doesn't matter. I'm just gonna do what I have to do. That's all. She spoke with certainty. Her wrinkled face started into a smile as she added, "You can't even enjoy a meal if you know you haven't done things right." You're saying that this is what gives your life its meaning? This was the question to which Kime had long searched for an answer. For what purpose had he been born into this world? What was he supposed to accomplish here? He had continued to roam through his life endless journey without knowing the answers to these questions, indeed, because he didn't know the answers. I don't know about deep stuff like that, Grandma Koto said shyly. I just build the wheat I've harvested to bake the bread in the fall. That bread is really special. Nothing tastes as good as the first bread you make with the wheat you grew that year. That's what my grandson looks forward to every year. I can't decide to take a year off now, can I? I see. I see what you mean. No, you don't, she declared. You're nothing but a damn soldier. Her face had turned hard again. There was no more smiles from her that day. When Kyle returned to the barracks, a soldier who had been stationed in the village for 6 months. Rumor said to him, that old bag hates our guts. Because we ruined the village? That's part of it, I suppose. But it's got deeper roots than that for her. Grandma Koto had lost her entire family to war. First, her husband died in the war 40 years earlier. Then her son and his wife in the war 20 years earlier. And now, the one grandson they had left was taken to fight in the current war. What's his unit? Kaim asked the soldier. The man gave a helpless shrug and named a unit that had been sent to an area with the most intense fighting. Talk about bad luck. The fighting's so bad out there. If it was me, I'd take my chances of being executed for deserting under fire. He's got maybe 50-50 chance of coming back alive. No, maybe 37. Wow. If her grandson were to be killed, Grandma Koto would be all alone in the world. She would have no one to feed her bread to. Be tough to be left alone at that age, the soldier said. Looking at old Koto, I can't help thinking of my mother back home. There's no way I can let myself get killed. She'd never stop crying. For you too, eh, Kaim? Kaim said nothing in reply. He had no right to put himself in the same category as this soldier. The battle started 3 days later. The enemy army's attack was even fiercer than expected. The defense forces had no choice but to put everything they put into the fight. Kaim slipped away from the battlefront and headed for Grandma Koto's house. He found her leaving for the field as always. She gave no sign that she was afraid of the fighting. People who know exactly what they must do and refuse to be distracted by anything else can be strong beyond all reason. Saw now that there could be far greater strength in a finite life than in one that it lasted forever. Because he sensed this so deeply, he stood before her, blocking her way. He lifted the tiny old woman in his arms and carried her body back to her house. What are you doing? Let go of me. I'm not going to follow some soldier's orders. I worked to the ISI now, so put me down now. I don't want to let you die. Holding her against his chest, he looked her in the eye and pleaded with her. I want you to bake bread next autumn again for a new crop of wheat. She stopped flaring her arms and legs in a vain attempt to get free. As long as you have someone to feed your freshly baked bread to, I want you to keep baking bread year after year. Old Koto heaved a huge sigh and muttered, I knew you were a very strange soldier. The battle raged on for several days. The arrogant, cowardly captain died in the fighting. The soldiers who told Kaim the story of Grandma Koto also died. Countless defense troops died, and countless enemy troops died. It was consumed in the flames of war, and old Koto's fields was ravaged under the heels of the military. Side managed to stave off the attackers and followed the retreating enemy to the north. All that remained in our wake was the empty desert's devastated village. The war ended as spring was giving way to summer. At the cost of massive casualties, the army repulsed the enemy's invasion. The village began to recover little by little, as Grandma Kodo had predicted. Not one old person who crossed the mountains to the refugee camp came back alive. Autumn, and Kaim has come back to the village. He feels warm in his chest when he looks across the field to spot Oko that was sowing wheat. So, she's doing it again this year. And next year and the year after that, as long as she is alive. She notices Kaim and tosses towards him with a welcoming smile. A year has passed. She seemed to have shrunk somewhat with a year's worth of aging. It's haven't seen you for a while, she says. So, they didn't kill you, and I'm glad to see you looking well too. I heard you stayed near my house during the fight. Henley fought to keep enemy troops away from it. If gives her a shy smile. How was your wheat? Yes, all ruined, of course. Worst crop I've ever had. A few scrawny stalks. Barely enough for one loaf. She tells him all this with surprising ease. Then she fixes her eye on him and asks, have some? What? Bread, of course. I'll bake a loaf now if you'll help me eat it. Oh, sure, but Yamakoto says through Kaim's hesitancy and says with a calm style, yeah, he's dead. My grandson. I got word at the end of the summer. I was waiting and hoping, planning to bake him a loaf of bread as soon as he got home. When she sees Kaim hanging his head in silence, she adopts a spirited tone as if she has to be the one to cheer him up. Come on then, you eat what we would have had. It'd probably be tougher than usual, what with the wheat harvest being so bad. And I'm sure my grandson would be happy to know I fed my bread to the man who saved my life. So this old man has lost her entire family to war. In other words, there is no one left to enjoy her bread. Still, she urges Kaim to wait just a minute until I finish this up. Sowing the wheat for the next year's harvest. She does it because that is what she has always done. Because it's what she is supposed to do. Kaim stops himself from speaking the words, "Let me help," and he stands staring at old Koto bent back. In the glow of the setting autumn sun, she is sadly small and sadly beautiful. Time eats the fresh baked bread, Okoto Rosary, made for wheat grown without its full measure of care. The bread is hard and dry and poor in taste. Still, of all the bread Chaim has eaten and will go on to eat in his long life, this is by far the most delicious. Alright, so we will now